Welcome to episode 307 here on Jumpstart Your Joy. This week on the show, I am really excited to have guest Tami Hackbarth back for a second time. Of course, she is the host of 100% Guilt-Free Self-Care podcast, and she runs a very successful coaching business where she works with women to help them define and follow up with self-care, taking care of themselves. And she really is such a joy. As you know, this season is all about intentional comfort. So we're talking about how to find intentional comfort through taking care of the unsexy, unfun, deferred maintenance type things that all of us put off doing, taking care of our bodies, taking care of our health. It's been so easy to let all of that fall to the wayside, especially during this pandemic. And Tami has lots of great ideas on how to get back on top of that. So I cannot wait to share that interview with you. Before we get to that, I want to wish you a very warm welcome and say I am so glad that you are here. Of course, Jumpstart Your Joy started in 2015. It's been around a while. And if you want to find out more about me or the show, you can learn everything you need to know over at the website, which is jumpstartyourjoy.com. You'll find the show notes for this episode in the comments below. So I am so excited to share this interview with Tami Hackbarth with you. First, Tami's a total joy, and I love getting to talk to her whenever I can. We've met since exchanging interviews and being on each other's podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk about how we can approach what she calls deferred maintenance. It's also her year-long program, which you can sign up for. I've taken it. It's amazing. But the gist of it is this. There are so many things that we leave unattended in our lives, and they can cause problems when they are not addressed. The bits of advice that we get from doctors, knowing we need more sleep, which was one of my things, and basically just taking care of ourselves so that we have the energy and the ability to handle whatever life throws our way. We also talk about self-care, some of our favorite shows. There's a lot of fun things in this episode. And you'll also hear about how I recently fell down holding a bunch of folded napkins, which made me laugh so hard when I went back to re-edit it. I know you're just going to love this. So let's just cut on over to that interview. Here comes Tami Hackbarth.
I'm so excited to be back. Yay for 2020 self-care.
Yes.
And all the guilt-frees.
Yes. I'm excited to have this conversation. I would love for you to tell me something that's kind of bringing you joy right now in the middle of January of 2022.
Okay. Studio effects on Zoom, where you can do eyebrows and lipstick. Hilarious. You can add facial hair. That was an unexpected joy. A client of mine showed up on Zoom. This adorable woman with this super chic pixie cut shows up, and she also has very on-trend bushy brows that don't actually live on her face, as well as a goatee. And so, but we spent 10 minutes laughing because neither one of us knew how to take these off. And I realized, wow, unexpected laughing brings me joy.
Yeah.
Another thing bringing me joy is spending time outside over that weird, what do we call the week between Christmas and New Year's?
It needs a name, right?
It totally needs, and I don't know what that name should be. Neverland, Nowhere
Cheese
Time.
Fest.
Like who am I? Well, like during the abyss, I discovered an account on Instagram called 1000 Hours Outside.
Ooh.
And I thought, oh my God, I love a project. And you know me well enough to know that I don't actually care if I get 1,000 hours, right? Like if I don't get to 1,000 hours, that is not going to break my heart. What I'm looking for when I see that audacious goal is, oh shit, I should probably go outside more.
Yeah.
I don't think my kids actually need this because my kids outside all the time, but I need it as a reminder that this is something that really helps with my mental health. And then the third thing that's bringing me joy is I've been swimming.
Yes.
All of 2021, a very generous friend has said, please come to my pool. And you're thinking, it's January. How generous is this? It's heated to 94 degrees.
Dreamy.
So I have been swimming outdoors in 94-degree water, and it's a swim spa. So it's that
Nice.
thing where it's like a jet pushing on your head, and you're swimming to. It's like the treadmill of swimming. Um, and I have never in my life felt more supported in the water than being in this like warm tub, and around her yard is gorgeous. It's all these old trees and bamboo, and it's very secluded and looks like a resort. And so that's where I've been spending a lot of my days um, during the last year.
I love
And
it.
it is absolutely been so healing and so like, God, I didn't even know I needed this until I got it. And I was like, ooh, I hope everybody finds that thing that they're like, oh, that really scratched an itch I was unaware I had.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. One of my unexpected joys last night, we've been watching Cobra Kai. We're starting from the beginning, which is a very good show. If you haven't seen it, clearly Karate Kid. But last night, the title of the show was Glory of Love. And of course, this is a Peter Cetera song. I didn't actually realize it was in the second movie until I like re-looked it up. So I decided it was time for karaoke. Of course, I have a lot of microphones in my house. And yet I went and got the ladle from our kitchen, which is, of course, right here behind me. And I'm singing it. And my family was not amused.
Oh, which does that not just
I
ratchet,
was
does that
amused.
not ratchet up the amusement for yourself if your family's not amused?
Yes.
Right?
Because the
I'm
cheesing did not
turned into
stop.
that person where I'm like, oh, is this annoying you, embarrassing you? You
I
just
can
said turn it
sing
up.
louder.
Okay, I can do that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So that was my unexpected joy. I like that. And um you can hear that my last guest actually recommend watching Ted Lasso. Also amazing if you haven't seen it. In this episode, or sorry, in the season, I am, we're focusing on intentional comfort. And part of that for me, I put intentional in front of the word comfort because I don't want this to be a discussion of how do we just kind of become comfortable. Like, I don't think any of us have been comfortable for the last 2 years and probably a decade at some level. And so, how do we find a space? It's basically another word, really, for self care, right? I mean, like, how do we start to take care of ourselves, even though these times are weird and hard and everything seems to
Uncertain.
uncertain? Yes,
Uncertain. And just so if you are somebody that's like, oh shit, that's what I've been feeling all this time. Yeah, and you know who hates uncertainty?
me.
Humans. Humans hate uncertainty, which is why we are like, but just tell me what to do and I'll do it and then I'll have the outcome. That's not how life works. Like that's why we try to control stuff.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I do, and you know this, I like to control the things I actually can control.
Hmm.
So here's some good news, bad news, and it truly is that we are in charge of a lot when it comes to how we feel.
Yeah.
We are in charge a lot in how we age. So in the olden days, i.e., in our lifetime, hi Gen Xer, uh, not that long ago, people, and when I say people or they, I mean scientists, believed, because that was what the data was showing them, is that A, your brain was fully formed, and that like that whole you can't teach old dogs new tricks thing. That turns out that's bullshit. Neuroplasticity says we can learn things from birth to death. We just learn them really fast when we're little, and our brains are like, please form me and tell me the things,
Yeah.
right? So neuroplasticity, we can change over time. We can learn over time. And it used to be believed that genetics played a big role in your eventual longevity and health. And then over the last few decades, they're like, actually, genetics only plays about 20%. So that
Mm.
like playing the cards you were dealt, you're like, wait, only 20% of my cards are like for real? And you're like, yeah. And you're like, fuck, that means I'm in charge of the rest of the 80% of the cards?
Yeah.
Me? With my behavior? What? And so that's the good news, bad news. If you want to control something, people, we can do a lot to help our mental health. And here's the part where it really sucks. It's all that unsexy shit that your doctor told you about, that your mom told you about. Not that your doctor or your mom is actually doing it either. But it's like sleep. Guys, sleep. Like the real kind, like for 7 to 9 hours, 365 days a year. That's a thing that we can really control. And by control, I mean surrender into, after we do all these other behaviors that allow us to sleep. Eating vegetables and fruit. I know it's crazy. As my daughter likes to call it, my daughter's 11 and she is very observant. Um, I have been hit with a rash of stomach aches over the last few years, and she's really been witness to them. And it will always be me moaning, and she'll be like, "Well, Mama, what did you eat?" And I'll tell her, and she's like, "You can't eat like a teenager. You're not a teenager anymore." And I'm like, and then this is my favorite. When are you going to learn that you can't do that anymore? And I'm like, maybe today, maybe I'll have to test that again. Right? So it's all these things, good news, bad news. We control the future senior citizen that we become to a big degree. We can do small daily habits. I know it's unsexy shit, guys, but it's true. All of those little small things that we do daily really contribute to our mental health, our physical health, our sense of well-being, all that shit. And I'm like, you mean I have to do it? Fuck. Yeah. And them's is the breaks, people. Them's is the breaks. We control a lot of it. Are there outside factors that get in the way of being able to do things? You bet. And it's one of those, and then we have to overcome those hurdles as well, because no one can do it for us.
Yeah.
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 The good news, bad news, sobering midlife thought. And if
Well,
anyone wants to fight me on midlife, I'm like, I'm going to be 52. Literally no one in my family has lived to be over 100. I might be more than midlife.
yes.
Right? So it's that deal. And because I think there's a lot of like, I'm never going to get old. I'm never going to do these things. I'm like, well, it's nor here nor there. What I'm trying to do right now in my early 50s is look down. I have befriended my mid 70s self. And I always think, what am I going to do today that it's going to help her rock the shit out of her senior citizenry? So I'm going to work on my mobility so that I can stay independent. I'm going to work on my flexibility so that I can stay independent. I'm going to work on my strength so that I can stay independent. I'm going to work on all of these things now, because we don't build senior citizens when we get to be senior citizens. We build them when we think that we're not senior citizens or in midlife, right? And I have tested this theory because I don't know if you know this, because I believed I was not human for a long time. I don't know what the hell I thought I was, but women lose female bodies lose muscle mass at quite a rapid rate, starting between age 30 and 35. And as somebody who was really strong for my whole life, in my mid 40s, I kicked up into a handstand, because as one does when they're a yoga teacher, kicked up into a handstand, and then collapsed on my head and was like, what the hell is happening here? And I realized in my mid 40s, oh shit, I forgot to do strength training this whole time. So I had lost strength that I had always had. And so if you're listening to this now and you're over 30, it's time to start strength training. Doesn't have to be fancy, but it does have to be consistent, because the longer you wait, the more you're like, oh shit, I'm rebuilding this airplane while I'm in the air. And that's pretty stressful.
It's so interesting because I've even noticed in the last few months, maybe it's because, yeah, no one's, well, I'm personally not like working out. I've been maybe more reserved with like, um, isolating, even though like I haven't been exposed to this pandemic that I know of, but like we've just been more careful. So, but like yesterday, I managed to fall like an old lady falls. Like I was moving with our we have fabric napkins that I had folded. Also, evidently, maybe that's some sort of ancient trait. I feel like
We
I'm
also
really
use,
sharing how I cannot
also
remember
use
anything and
napkins.
I fall constantly here and use fabric napkins. Welcome to Jumpstart Your Joy. Anyway, fall, epic.
The next show.
Will be me looking into old folks' homes. No.
For
Anyway,
myself. My parents don't need to go. I'm the one that's falling.
I'm going soon. But so I fall, epic fall, like kind of twist the ankle, don't somehow let go of the napkins because they're folded, and then like land on my side. And I'm like, and it was slow motion in your head kind of. And I'm like, what was this? I bet some of it was total loss of muscle mass. Like I just could not even control myself, which made me feel ancient and caused me to later sing into a ladle. I'm sure I'm fine. Nothing hurts today. Thank heavens. But I love that. Thank you for the reset on this because I do feel like there's something in there, which is like, how do I recover and like get back on the right path here? Because it's not like this isn't going to just magically get better. I need some strength training. So,
Oh my God. And I have to tell you,
yeah.
I've had this conversation with one of my friends who is, she's a movement specialist and
Sure.
she works with women in midlife. And we keep laughing and I'm like, the future's coming for you. The future. I was like, I want you to start a podcast and the name is The Future is Coming for You. This
Mm-hmm.
is the thing. I don't know about you, but no one is more surprised about me being in my 50s than me.
Yes.
Right? So I'm like, if I can be this surprised in my 50s, imagine how surprised I'm going to be in my 70s when I'm like, what was I doing during all of that time for this big buildup
Yeah.
of me being this future me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and early in my coaching program, we did a future me meditation. And
It's a
if
good
y'all
one.
haven't done a future me meditation, I like wept with how awesome I'm going to be in the future. But other people were like, oh my God. And I was like, no, we got to make peace with our future senior citizen. And she's badass.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's got it on. I'm like, oh, I better get it together so I can be her someday.
Yeah.
Right. My future senior citizen is going to be really flexible and strong, have a daily yoga practice, not at a studio, but on my own, where I could be like, what does this body need today to feel good, to feel not in pain? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about you, but I'm like, why does my this hurt? Why does my that hurt? I didn't do anything, but here we are. Uh-oh, I can't get off the floor. Um, but all of these things, like, I need to build her in the present.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's an interesting thing because I don't think we realize like there's not an intentional shift between like mid 20s into 30s into 40. Like we don't intentionally realize or think about, wait, maybe I need to take care of myself differently. And kind of like you're saying about even what you're choosing to eat that I mean, I know a little too well that I can't do gluten, I can't do fructose, major fructose intolerance. If I eat all that, it's bad news. And so that was like a great amount of investigation around what is causing this. But I didn't get there until kind of the Liz Gilbert, like we don't make a change until we're tired of our own bullshit thing. Like I couldn't function anymore. So I'm like, I gotta figure this out. But I love what you're saying about this. Like, how do we make it the intentional shift now to take care of those pieces before it becomes the moment where we're like, I just fell down and I literally can't get up. Whatever that is, literally me with the napkins or the figurative fall down and I can't get up because I haven't enabled myself to be that person yet. And noticing these things in the moment, it's that whole thing of it might be uncomfortable momentarily when you're like, I think I need to call my doctor, or I think I need to schedule in my case, perhaps I just need to go on some walks. Maybe I need to do some upper body strength training. That doesn't sound fun to me. But it's like getting through that discomfort to then have like strong arms, or have either the confirmation, yes, from a doctor, there's something wrong, or even better, the confirmation, you don't have anything to worry about. Everything's clear. I think we get so hung up on the not knowing and that fear of the unknown that it will put us like right into the place where we're dead in the water on it. And then we don't make any next steps. And then it is always uncomfortable. And the thing that I love about it is that on the other side of it, once you've gotten the confirmation, or now you have strong arms, now there's great comfort. Like, I can catch myself if I fall, whatever that fall is. Again, I love that this worked so well for this conversation. Thank God I fell yesterday.
Right. But there's also that, like, so what if you get the diagnosis?
Yeah.
Well, now you have information that now you can make that next educated decision about what your options are versus swimming around in your anxiety or your denial. I feel like they're the same. They feel the same in my body.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Which is
observation.
like, you will be waking up at 4 a.m. to worry about this.
Yeah.
Because my brain's like, so anyway, it's 4 a.m. Let's get up and worry about shit that you totally have control over that you're avoiding. I don't know what you get. But when I do boring ass shit, like strength training for 15 minutes, I think I've won the day. I am clearly a superior human because I have overcome the resistance to the bullshit
Yeah.
about, like, I need to maintain this ish in this boring way. And I get a very deep sense of accomplishment, and like, I can do anything because I did weight training for 15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Dumb.
agree. There is a sense of that. Like, if I'll just take the dog for a walk, because otherwise he tends to get up in the night. He's waking everyone up. If we go for the 10-20 minute walk, he is also mellowed. So I got to believe there's something in us that's maybe more biologically wired, that like when we do the thing, it helps our bodies just calm down because they've released some of that. We've gotten out of the house. We've shifted the energy. Like, everybody feels a little bit better. So yeah.
Yeah, and I've been practicing this movement thing much more regularly since I became a parent,
Mm.
because we are an adoptive family, and my daughter came to us almost at a year old, and she would not take a nap unless we went outside and moved our bodies.
Oh, wow.
Ask me how I know this. It was a struggle. It was terrible. And you know about babies, if they don't take their nap, then they're like, you know what? I don't sleep anymore.
Right.
You know what we should do? I'm a jerk, but I'm awake, and so are you. And so it was that thing where I was like, oh, did you say we're going to the park at 7 a.m., 365 days a year for the first 3 years of your life? Off we go.
We are.
Off
Yes.
we go. And I'm going to walk there, push you in the stroller, right? So that's how it's like, I
Yeah.
wish I could make up different rules about how bodies worked. Like, I have this
Yeah.
whole theory that, you know, when you're young, you think about working out and you're like, oh my God, I'm so svelte. I'm so fit. I feel like we should start when we're little with none of that shit, so that we have to like build good habits along the way because we have to,
Yeah.
versus you get a free pass for 25 years and then now you have to make fucking like
Yeah.
really big behavior changes.
Yeah. It's way harder
It's
when
dumb.
we're not building to learn it, and we have to learn it later. I know, even though if a listener, they're like, but you just said neuroplasticity, old dog can, yeah. Yeah. But once you're the
Yeah,
old dog,
you can do it,
yes.
but it's so much harder. It's this thing. When a baby is moving from baby to toddler, how many times do they try to walk before they do? The answer
Way
is
so
all
many.
of the times until they're successful.
Yeah.
As an adult, when was the last time you're like, I am so terrible at this thing that I'm literally falling? I also have recently fallen. I tripped over my own foot and fell into my stove. So glad it
Oh,
wasn't on.
yeah.
And I was by myself and I'm like, but I was like, oh my God, cue the future's coming for me. It's like, take all things out of your path, old lady.
Right.
Get it together.
Yeah.
And I realized there was nothing in my path and I tripped over my own foot. But like, when was the last time that you're like, I'm going to be, what do they call it? Uh, Consciously incompetent at something,
Yeah.
and then getting all the way through that process to consciously competent. By the way, there's a lot of steps between I don't know anything, how to do this, and now I'm proficient and I don't even have to think about it.
Right. There are. And you know what?
But
This
we
will be
get out of
meta.
practice doing that as a grown up,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I'll leave this in there for the YouTube version of this. Video editing. Here's a huge place where, should I admit this in public? Who knows? But so some of the client work I do is with clients that have videos that they put on YouTube. I have an editor that helps me with that. I felt for a long time like I want to do that. Like I want to know how. Well, the only way to do it is to start. So, hi, we're on YouTube with this. And is it perfect? No, but am I learning something new just by getting hands on with it every time? Yes. And you know what? It is not that hard. I think that's the thing too, is that fear will tell us this is going to be hard, whether this is attending to deferred maintenance or this is learning the new skill, whatever it
It
is,
doesn't matter what it is, your brain's like, you
hard.
are terrible. That will kill you. Do not change anything. And you're
Yes,
like, my brain doesn't tell me that. It's like, I bet you it does.
it
How,
does.
let's try this on for size. Who are you to do that? Or you're
Get
too,
out of my head, Tami
or
Hackbarth.
you're too whatever, or what does it matter anyway? It's like,
Yeah,
I'm just telling you, fear, procrastination, perfectionism, it's all the same shit, which is your brain is like, you are terrible. Everyone has their shit together but you.
not true.
Totally not true, because no one has their shit together.
Yeah,
No one
yeah,
has their shit together. Some
no.
people have better habits, that we can agree on.
And you can develop a new habit.
You can develop better habits
You
too.
could be on YouTube. You could do strength training. One of the favorite parts of 2021 for me, because Miss Tami Hackbarth here leads the deferred maintenance program, which is now an entire year, which I cannot even imagine in the best of ways, how amazing that would be to be so immersive into, facing some of these fears, breaking them down and realizing you can do this stuff. I mean, you guys can go back. I will link this one up in the show notes. I literally tackled the not sleeping issue for myself to this day. Okay, so I got that again, come clean in December, got a little off the rails. I am now back to being someone who is sleeping as much as I can, working on it still. But I think the way that you introduce all this stuff, Tami, is so magical because it's this, hey, we all got stuff we got to work on. So let's do it together. Do you want to, will you give us your insights on what is deferred maintenance? How do you approach
Yes.
it?
So the first module is all about mindset, which is, just so we're clear, and I know we all do this to some degree, we think that we can bully ourselves into being better. Like, if I am super rigid with myself, if I yell at myself when I make mistakes or don't follow through, that I'm somehow gonna come out of that better and do it perfectly next time. Well, it turns out your brain's like, no, thank you. I think I'll shut down and do nothing instead. Right? Who's been that person? Which is, you set a New Year's resolution January 1st, and by Martin Luther King Day, you're like, what? Eating Cheetos, watching TV, you haven't brushed your hair. but you meant to be the flosser marathon runner, right? So we start with this self-compassion. We start with this whole idea that self-care is not just what we're sold in magazines. So in deferred maintenance, we tackle all the boring bullshit of human maintenance. We do things like track what we eat, not so that we can shrink our clothing size or our bodies. It's so that they can keep working. Said earlier about how I need to stop eating like a teenager. I'm never going to tell you what to eat, except we should probably all eat the produce in our homes before it goes bad.
Yeah.
Like, don't just be an aspirational shopper, but like actually consume it. We need to move our bodies. Again, not because we're trying to control something, it's so that they keep moving. We're going to build in quiet white space, and everyone's like, I don't even know what that is. It's called meditation, friends. We also talk a lot about mental health. We talk about ways that we can increase our longevity through things like lifelong learning. We talk about our relationships with ourselves and other people. We talk about our relationship with the world and how we can have more time and energy to create the world that we want to live in. And people go, damn, I do not have the energy to be creating a better world because I still have laundry to do. I'm like, we all have laundry to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do the laundry, then we're going to do the boring self-care that we actually need in order to have that inner energy so that we can be part of creating the world that we want to make better for ourselves and for future generations. So there's actually a big activism part. It's not required, but everyone becomes somewhat of an activist in deferred maintenance because we are reclaiming our time, we are reclaiming our energy. We're turning this notion that women are competitive assholes to each other. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like, we're using kindness for a tool to create a more kind and just world. So we start the year, and I'm doing these as bonus workshops for people who join the program. And if you're like, I don't know her, I don't know if I can do that. Well, I'm also doing these workshops as just, you can do them too. You can buy them on my website. And then if you're like, after you spend some time with me in January, you're like, shit, it turns out I do want to do deferred maintenance. You can apply the enrollment fee of the workshops to a year of deferred maintenance. So the first workshop is January 10th. It's January's and Monday, or it's Mondays in January. I think we all follow that, but I didn't say it right. Year in review.
Yeah.
The second workshop is going to be choosing a word of the year, which I always do. Some people are like, oh, that's so fluffy. Great. Then don't do it. What I'm saying is that shit has been absolutely life-changing for me so that I have a focus for a year so that I'm like, oh, remember that year where I said I was going to listen? Oh, yeah, that's the year I shut up and actually learned a lot more. Remember that year where I said I was going to be connected? Oh, that's right. I went deeper in my relationships with people. So then the third workshop is yearly goals. What?
That's a good one.
We're going to set yearly goals. And we're not just going to write them on a pretty piece of paper and then like forget about them. We're going to write yearly goals and then we're going to break them down into either quarters or quintiles. So that's the third week of January, the 24th. And then the last week of January, the bonus workshop is vision boards. Again, some people think that is woo-woo shit. To which I say, sure, but is it going to hurt anyone to put pretty pictures somewhere where you're like, you know what I always wanted to do? I've always wanted to host a yoga retreat on the California coast. Well, guess what? I put that on my vision board. Then I lost my vision board because I literally lost it. Then I found it and it was I did it. What I like to do is make a vision board and then ignore it and then find it years later and go, oh my God, I think these things work. It just gets your head around like, these are the things that I would like. And maybe your brain's like, okay, so you saw it, so let's make it happen.
Yeah, we're going to acknowledge it, and we're working on it. Yeah. So if somebody wants to join you for any of those workshops, because this will be out on the 11th, so they could start with you starting, what would that be? The 17th, the 24th, the 31st, or they could just jump in and do deferred maintenance with you. Where can they find it?
They can find it at my website, which is Tami Hackbarth, very clever, .com/deferred-maintenance, where you'll find all the information. And the workshops are going to be, so if you hear this on the day it comes out and you're like, damn, I missed that one. All the workshops are going to be recorded and kept for you for the entirety of January.
I love it. And I'll put all those links in the show notes here. Thank you so much for coming back, Tami. This has been such a treat to have you on, and I always love our conversations so much.
Thank you for having me. I feel like this is, it feels like it's coming home. We're just some Gen X gals talking about the learning that we get to have over and over and over. It's like, oh, I still have to sleep. I still have to floss.
I gotta eat my veggies.
I still gotta eat my veggies.
Yogurt.
Yeah, it's like, oh, but I thought I did all that. You did, and your prize is you get to do it some more. It's a big fat surrender to hopefully living to be a senior citizen.
Yeah.
And living well and feeling good for our future senior citizens.
And living a life that feels infused with joy and fulfillment and all of that. So, well, thank you so much, Tami.
Thank you.
Tami, I feel like each of our conversations are so great. I hope that if you've listened to this and you even have an inkling that you might want to sign up for deferred maintenance, I cannot recommend it highly enough. Like this, there's no affiliate code, no nothing here. I took her program and loved it, and I know you will get a lot out of it. If you feel like there's some things that you want to deal with or that you want to tackle around your own self-care this year, please go look up her program. The link will be in the description below. Next week on the show, I'm really excited to have author William J. Peters joining me. He wrote an amazing book about shared death experiences. Now, of course, I had Sharon Prentice on a couple of seasons ago, and she talked about a very profound experience she had when her husband died. The thing that I love about this episode with William is that I asked him about an experience I had when my grandmother passed away when I was 10, and we get to talk about a shared death experience that I actually had. So I hope you will tune in. It was a delightful conversation, and I feel like there's a lot to learn from what William has to share. So I hope you'll come on back next week for that conversation. And until then, I hope that your days are filled with so much joy.